Can you hear me now? Okay. Here we go. I wanted to talk about reproductive practices. This is an election year, and I live in Texas. A lot of us here are from Florida too, so you know the drill. All right. I wanted to give anyone a chance to opt out if their children are present at this point due to the topic. This is the agenda of what I'm talking about today. Okay, no, I don't see any children. And if you want your children to stay, that's okay too. All right. Since not everyone knows one another here and we're all committed to being confined to a boat together, I thought maybe now would be the time to ask if you know if your car's warranty is about to expire. Not really. I thought we could maybe break the ice with a quick game. It's called Never Have I Ever. For example, I'll go first. Never have I ever taken a cruise. This is my first cruise, and I'd like to thank the Central Florida Freethought community for inviting my husband, Aaron Ra, and me to cruise with them. To add to that, never have I ever been to the Dominican Republic, the US or British Virgin Islands, or the Bahamas. If you have never heard of Never Have I Ever before, the rules are simple and posted above on the slide. Now it's your turn. By a show of hands, never have I ever eaten dog or cat food. Oh my goodness. Remember, no judging or shaming, folks. I kid. Okay, that wasn't a real question. I thought everybody would raise their hands there. And of course, according to the rules, you don't have to participate if you don't want to. So some people, maybe they did or didn't do something, or maybe they're not participating. Okay, next question. Never have I ever taken a cruise. Oh, wow. Never have I ever taken a cruise. There you go. Okay, we got it worked out. Okay. Never have I ever been to the Dominican Republic. Oh, okay. Never have I ever been to the US Virgin Islands. Lots of us. Okay. We are virgins in that sense, I suppose. Okay, yeah, the question is, never have you ever been to the British Virgin Islands? Never been there. Okay. All right. Never have I ever been to the Bahamas. Oh, lots of people have been to the Bahamas. All right, next question. Never have I ever learned to swim well. That's me. So our non-swimmers, we'll hold together doing it while everybody else is swimming around us. Okay. How about never have I ever snorkeled? I have done that. Okay. And maybe some people don't plan on snorkeling, and that's okay. Let's see if I can scroll down here. He showed me how to do it, but okay, I'm doing it. All right. Never have I ever eaten Caribbean-style food. Everybody has. Caribbean-style food. Like jerk chicken, peas and rice. Yeah, okay. I could pause here. If anybody wants to share their experience, you can raise your hand of eating Caribbean food for anybody who hasn't eaten it. Okay. I've had lots of Caribbean food. I once dated someone from the Bahamas, although I've never been to the Bahamas. Okay. Next question. Never have I ever been religious. Oh, wow. Never, as in never, ever. Never been religious. Amazing. Lots of religious, ex-religious, and maybe we have somebody who still is. I don't know, but we're accepting free-thinking people, you know. Okay. Next question. Never have I ever watched an R&Raw video. An R&Raw video. Oh, okay. So you just came here to cruise, huh? Okay. Never have I ever heard of R&Raw. Oh. Okay. So by extension, because I'm often associated with him, never have you ever heard of Lilandra. Lilandra, me. Okay. Now here's a chance for the audience choice of topic. Does anybody want to try and ask a question of the audience? You can stand up and ask never have I ever if you're curious about anything about your fellow cruisers. No? Okay. Next slide. All right. Now we're going to talk about doing it the old-fashioned way. and I'm going to get into that because there's a Christian opinion on that. So, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. This is a Christian view of sex on the slide. The monstrosity of sexual intercourse outside marriage is that those who indulge in it are trying to isolate one kind of union, the sexual, from all the other kinds of union which were intended to go along with it and make up the total union. And that's the author C.S. Lewis. Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? C.S. Lewis. Okay. He also had a lot to say about theology. He wrote a book a lot of people already know, Mere Christianity, and that's for the thinking Christian. Okay. I borrowed a few quotes from the Christian website, BibleReasons.com, on the topic titled 60 Epic Bible Verses About Sex. Let's see how practical they are to our lives. Number 1 on that list is Proverbs chapter 5, verses 18 to 19. May your fountain be blessed, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth, a loving doe, a graceful deer. May her breasts satisfy you always. May you ever be intoxicated with her love. Aww. I can't help but think the song lyric, a doe, a deer, a female deer, when I read that. And also, may your fountain be blessed. I guess it's a dubious blessing. Bless your fountain. This is the site's rationale for sexual chemistry, verbatim. This is how they explain that verse. God created sex as a dynamic force to connect a husband and a wife. Sex in marriage is honorable before God and man. It holds marriages together. God designed chemicals to be released in our brains when we make love. Oxytocin, dopamine, and vasopressin. These hormones are addictive. They hold a couple captive to one another. The first claim is kind of iffy on the science because there's no evidence that hormones were designed by God. But the claim that hormones hold couples captive to one another, why would God design hormones to hold other people captive to one another? Does any couple, past or present, need to hold each other captive? I mean, beyond consensual bondage fetish. But number 3, here we are with reason number 3. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verses 3 to 4. The husband should give to his wife her conjugal rights, and likewise the wife to her husband. For the wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. Likewise, the husband does not have authority over his own body, but the wife does. Okay. People do have authority to consent to what is done to their own bodies. Sex without consent is rape, even in marriage. In fact, marital rape has been illegal since the 1970s in the United States. But it took until 1993 for every state to eliminate marital rape exceptions. Shame that it took that long. But verses like this one will still encourage this mentality today. Before we go patting ourselves on the back for having discarded that mentality. The law in South Carolina to this day says marital rape is prosecutable if higher level force is used. So it has to be weapon, threat of intense physical violence. No. The site also has advice on what the Bible says about sexual positions, because we brought up the missionary position. Okay. Surprisingly, it condones oral sex, but says, sodomy. But it says no to anal sex. To each their own, however they want to please each other, right? There are a couple of the verses following their opinions on the Bible and anal sex. The first is the Song of Solomon, chapter 4, verse 16. Awake, north wind, and come, south wind, blow on my garden, that its fragrance may spread everywhere. Let my beloved come into his garden and taste its choice fruits, which sounds like an argument in favor of anal sex, but who am I to say? And also, 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 2. But because of the temptation to sexual immorality, each man should have his own wife and each woman her own husband. But even heterosexually married couples have anal or oral sex. So what does that verse have to do with anything? This is their pearls of wisdom on anal sex. What about anal sex? Here's the thing. God designed the penis to go inside the vagina. The vagina has natural lubrication, and the lining of the vagina is relatively strong enough for a baby to pass through. So, undoubtedly strong enough for sex. The anus does not have lubrication, and the tissue of the anus is much more delicate and easily tear during sex. Okay. And to be clear, I'm not fixating on anal sex, they are. This is what they call their bottom line. Quote, that's what it says on their website, bottom line, I didn't add that. And I quote, bottom line, anal sex is unsafe for both partners, especially the wife. Okay, how about being prepared with hygiene and barrier methods like condoms? And not to be too obvious, but they make lube. And here's a verse they use to condemn sex before marriage. So they had a bunch of other advice about sexual positions, and I just gave you the choicest one, I suppose. Run from sexual sin. No other sin so clearly affects the body as this one does. For sexual immorality is a sin against your own body. Don't you realize that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit who lives in you and was given to you by God? You do not belong to yourself, for God bought you with a high price. So you must honor God with your body. That's 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 18 to 20. Not here to tell anyone what to do or how to do it. Mutual respect and protection by modern medicine cover it. But these folks and others are, and based on an ancient book. There are a lot more distorted views of sex and consent on this site that I'm going to spare you today. Apparently, people still need to hear that sex can be safe and consensual, and even more responsible than the way it is prescribed in the Bible. So, next slide. Why do we have to live according to what the Bible says? And here's another Christian view of sex. The free exchange of consent properly witnessed by the church establishes the marriage bond. Sexual union consummates it, seals it, and completes it, and perfects it. Sexual union, then, is where the words of the wedding vows become flesh. Okay. And I'm sure many of us have changed our minds as we have matured and grown. Changing your mind is great if you're wrong about something. The more havoc I've witnessed created by practicing reproduction according to the Bible, the more my views on its usefulness have changed. It is difficult, though, when you're indoctrinated from childhood with not just outdated but harmful ideas. I have told the story before of sitting through an abstinence-only presentation as a teacher for middle school boys in Odessa, Texas. It applies here, unfortunately. First, I was a child in the 1970s, and I was raised in both a Southern Baptist and Catholic home by divorced parents. I had to unlearn all kinds of damaging ideas about sex, marriage, LGBTQ, femininity, and abortion rights. This class was during the 2000s, though. In walks this older gentleman with his pants above his navel. But despite that, he still could be relevant to preteen boys on the topic itself. In Odessa, I don't think they trusted teachers to give the talk themselves. His presentation was punctuated more than once by him slapping a diagram of a penis on the overhead projector and exclaiming that penile cancer means that they remove your penis. Also, he kept reiterating that condoms fail, discouraging their use in a part of the state of Texas that had the second highest rate of repeat teen pregnancy. At the end of his presentation, he took questions on note cards. He made an impression on one of the students with his condom rinse because he asked, what if they wear 2 condoms? Ironically, the friction between 2 condoms can cause a condom to fail. However, a condom used correctly has a 98% effective rate according to the National Health Service, or United Kingdom's NHS. I tried to grade papers with a straight face through the entire thing, but a quizzical eyebrow sometimes shot up. I looked up from my papers in disbelief, though, at the answer to the question if oral sex felt good. He told them immediately, no, because you think of getting an STD the entire time. The obvious question that pops up here is, who is he getting head from that he doesn't know if they have an STD? Just maybe if safe sex with condoms was taught, there might just be fewer STDs and unplanned pregnancies. Will an abstinence-only Christian put that knowledge out there? No. Even the girls-only presenter with the beehive hairdo discouraged condom use. But again, we can be relevant to modern reproductive science, whatever our fashion choices are, but not based on the Bible. Why does what they say have to matter? This is a quote from our current House Speaker, Mike Johnson. Roe versus Wade gave constitutional cover to the elective killing of unborn children in America, period, he said during an undated clip from the House Judiciary Committee hearing. You think about the implications of that on the economy. We're all struggling here to cover the basis of Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and all the rest. If we had all those able-bodied workers in the economy, we wouldn't be going upside down and toppling over like this. Current House Speaker, United States, Mike Johnson. He's dead serious, and you know it, right? There's so much wrong with what our current Speaker of the House has to say about abortion rights. Everyone with a fertile uterus cranks out able-bodied workers in his vision of America, whether they are prepared to be a parent or not, to save the economy, which is a dubious excuse. Whether even if their life is at risk to do so. With modern medical reproductive practices, it's no longer necessary to force anyone to give birth in 2024. In my home state, a woman had to flee the state because our state Supreme Court overturned a court decision to allow her to terminate a non-viable pregnancy. I shouldn't have to do this, but a couple of years ago, I tried to tell an ultrasound tech scanning my uterus that it could be you or someone you love facing a health or life-threatening pregnancy and unable to access abortion care because she lectured me the whole time while she's giving me a uterus scan on women's sexual behavior and abortions. In response, she insisted that the Texas law made exemptions for the health and life of the mother. As you can see from the Texas Supreme Court decision and our Attorney General Ken Paxton's promise to prosecute anyone who helps Kate Cox terminate a non-viable pregnancy, even if the lower court decision was upheld, no, the state of Texas will not make an exception for the health or the life of a pregnant person. My adult children now have fewer abortion rights and rights to their own bodies than I did when I was their age, 30 years ago. all to fit into a narrow-minded view of reproduction prescribed into the viewpoint of an ancient and medically inaccurate book. A book that states more than once that people don't have reproductive rights to their own bodies. In this election year, no one can rightly be surprised if abortion access is banned nationwide if we hand religious fundamentalists every branch of the national government. Okay, this part I have for questions, and no, don't ask me if oral sex feels good. Okay. The answer should be obvious. I want to thank y'all again for having us, and just everybody be safe and stay hydrated and bless your fountains. Okay. Hi. If you want to, they might be able to hear you better. Okay.
How widespread is this horrible sex education? Can we quantify in any way how contemporary sex education has gone down this religious rabbit hole?
I had sex education in the 1980s.
Can you repeat the question so everybody?
Okay, sorry about that. How widespread is this horrible sex education? Can we quantify how many children are being indoctrinated in this way with abstinence-only education, right? I had my sex education class in the 1980s. I watched The Miracle of Life, and I still got a better sex education than I did in that classroom in 2006. Because after George Bush, the younger, came into office, there was, I believe he funded abstinence-only programs across the country. So this is why, and that practice is continued. And Texas, because of Greg Abbott, we're backsliding on a lot of things, like it is next to impossible to get an abortion now in Texas, as Kate Cox's story shows you. And one of the districts I taught in, Dallas ISD, taught comprehensive sex ed, which is the best thing, which is basically saying, here are your options, this is how to use contraception, or don't, because sex is a responsibility, you know? And that's the best way to do it. I'm not sure as of today if they're still doing that in Dallas ISD, but I know abstinence only is widespread. My daughter is 23 and she got abstinence only education in Texas. So, yes?
I just wanted to, I was just sharing something with Judith that is so shocking, I think everybody should hear. 26,000 rapes in Texas, I'm from Texas as well, resulted in pregnancies, and all those pregnancies were forced to term. And that's Texas alone. 26,000 children, girls. Okay? This 1 year, his resources are breaking out. And 5,000 in like Florida, 5,000. But Texas is winning.
Yeah, we're winning.
I'm from Brownsville.
Thank you. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
I just thought, it's so shocking that sometimes you have to hear it. That it's just 26,000.
She said that 26,000 rapes last year in 2013 resulted in pregnancy, and all these people were forced to give birth because they weren't allowed. There's no rape exception in Texas. And she said 6,000 in Florida?
26,000.
What about Florida? 5,000 in Florida. And nobody should be surprised, nobody at all, if we hand them every single branch of our national government, if these rules do not go national. Because they've been working on this since the 1940s. of the abortion issue is their bread and butter to turn out their base. Yes?
I just wanted to add to what she said, because that was what I was gonna say. But the 26,000 is out, for Texas alone, is out of 64,000 national.
Right.
So almost half of the women who are required to carry their babies to term after they've been raped live in Texas.
So 64,000 people who were raped were forced to go to term nationally. So nearly half of those were in Texas.
Because freedom and liberty.
And there's another unsavory aspect to that, because we can go lower in Texas, you know we can. A lot of people who rape other people, even underage people, get custodial rights. So then the rape victim gets to co-parent with their rapist. Yes.
Maybe, I'm hoping you could, I have a strong voice, so I'll speak up, so hopefully you don't
Okay.
hear me. I'm hoping you could talk a little bit too about some of the other restrictions that are being made on abortion rights, because there's other states that require a 24 or 48-hour waiting period. They're putting up all these
Trap laws.
restrictions
Yeah.
to make it that much harder. You know, like I've talked with people about, you know, I've had people say, well, if a woman wants to get an abortion, she can leave Texas or whatever other state and go to another state. But then there might be other states that require a certain waiting period, quote unquote, because the woman has to somehow think it over in her head and make sure she really wants to go through with this. So can you talk a little bit about some of these other impediments that are being made that will prevent, you know, because if a poor woman doesn't have the resources to leave Texas
Exactly.
and go to another state, and then on top of that, some of these other states are putting up all these other barriers to getting.
They're called trap laws. He's talking about trap laws. There's another P in the, because it stands for, it's an acronym. He was saying, can you talk about some of the other restrictions on abortion that other states are doing, such as a 24-hour waiting period? This impacts people's ability to take off work, and if they have to travel out of state, they're out of Texas. Texas is a big state. And go to another state, you might need that day, and then you add another day waiting period to it. And also, they say, can a woman from Texas or another state that has these kind of laws just travel to another state? I mean, yes, as he pointed out, there are income issues, particularly if you already have other children, right? And a lot of women that access abortion are legally married and have other children, they just can't afford another child. So the state of Texas will prosecute people for traveling out of the state to seek an abortion. And so states like Washington, where they have less restrictive laws, are trying to enact shield laws to keep those patients' medical records private, so they can go home after they get an abortion, if they're able to go somewhere to have an abortion. As she pointed out, 26,000 people had to carry rape victims had to carry a pregnancy to term.
And think of the number of them that were probably just teenagers.
Yes.
Like 12.
And it was
My Uncle Jerry.
it was rape, and so it's apparently not as easy to leave the state as you think. If even rape victims can't get an abortion in another state. Yes.
So just those soapbox, this is what becomes your fascist state. This will translate to a fascist nation.
Yeah.
And, so voting matters, it's the least you can do. And if you don't vote, you can't complain.
Thank you.
She was saying voting is the least you can do. Voting is the basic, foundational first thing you can do. You can support some of our secular organizations. Maybe I don't know how many people would support the Satanic Temple, but they opened an abortion clinic in New Mexico.
Samuel Alito's mom abortion clinic.
Yeah. Yeah. He said Samuel Alito's mom. It's the name of the clinic is Samuel Alito's mom's abortion clinic. Okay. Who was next? The one in the blue shirt?
I was just wondering, on an intellectual basis, if we can't fight back against Christian fundamentalism using their own words. So, when I've asked anti-abortion Christians, what's your biblical basis for this? They only ever list one verse, which is, in my mother's womb you knew me, referring to God. But they're ignoring enormous numbers of verses where God punishes kids for making fun of a bald guy. He murders like a dozen kids. In Noah's Ark, there were pregnant women and infants, mass murder in Noah's Ark. There's, the Exodus story of God hardening the heart of the Egyptian Pharaoh so that God could prove a point, I guess. But all the firstborn were killed over and over again in the Bible. God couldn't give a crap about kids or infants who were tearing open the bellies of pregnant women. Why can't we use the Bible against Christians directly to undermine their own very weak intellectual arguments?
Very good.
Yes. She said why. And if I get your pronouns wrong, go ahead and correct me. Why can't we use the verses in the Bible to counter Christians? I don't know if anyone here has experience trying to explain the Bible and how God murders firstborn and commands people to rip babies out of the womb.
Yeah, their loophole is that's the Old Testament. That doesn't count.
God was unchanging.
That's the Old Testament.
People don't care what it says in the book, they care how the book makes them feel.
That's the only thing that seems to matter to these people is how it makes them feel.
And Jesus said that observe the Mosaic law, every jot and tittle.
That's Mosaic law is for the Old Testament.
Yes.
And then throughout the Old Testament, there was original sin. There was the whole purpose for the rest of the book, right?
There's a verse in there that tells you how and when to do an abortion.
Yes. She's right. Also, the Old Testament does have an abortion ritual to determine if someone's been unfaithful to their husband. They go to the temple and they make them ingest dirt from the temple floor. And if they have an abortion, if they abort, then they were guilty of infidelity. Yes.
So something else about using the Bible against them. A lot of the newer, younger atheists who were never religious in the first place that read the Bible. I have no way to do that. So it's just completely foreign to me. It's like, you don't believe in Zeus, but you believe in this?
She was saying that a lot of newer atheists and young atheists, or never religious, don't have never read the Bible, so they're not sure how to do it. And also, why can't just being compassionate for rape victims be a thing? This is 2024, for goodness sakes. Yes.
I don't know where to stand, but I've heard that the next step is with the Republicans is to make birth control illegal.
Yes. There are some elected representatives who want to make abortions. I'm so stuck. Contraception illegal. There's a lot of arguments that IUDs cause abortions, and they don't.
There is a small percentage that's true. But what about the day after that? I mean, if someone has sex and is unprotected, they should have to go to term on a possible pregnancy because they won't give them the day after pill or whatever.
Yeah, are you 486? Yeah. So they're trying to outlaw that as well, and those are still available on Amazon. For now. Yes.
So to follow up with what Pam said earlier, you can use religion against the other side. There's a rabbi in South Florida, his name is Barry Silver. Go Google it, look him up. I'm Jewish, I'm a Jewish atheist. Two things are not incongruous.
Yeah.
And Rabbi Barry Silver is basically saying that in the Jewish tradition, life does not begin until the first breath. And therefore, by outlawing abortion, you are basically in putting into law something that is counter to the Jewish tradition. So he is making a freedom of religion argument that the Florida law that they're trying to push now for a 6-week limit is basically anti-Jewish, because the Jewish tradition says you are violating my religion. So I'm not sure I like the idea of using religion for anything. I mean, the Satanic Temple does this, of course, all the time, which, you know, they're pretty clever about it. But look that up if you're interested in learning more about what he's pushing, because he's trying to make the case. You know, I mean, this is a Christian nation, quote unquote. So
He was saying that there's a rabbi who says that according to the Torah, that life begins at first breath, not conception. So they're being anti-Jewish in pushing these laws. And coincidentally, when I wrote an opinion piece on congratulating Dallas ISD for using comprehensive sex education and improving the having less abortions because of it, right? And a ladies group of Jewish women invited me to do a talk on abortion. And so there in Texas, there's a thing called Texas Freedom Network, and they have not just non-religious people, but also Christian people that join together to fight to keep our laws secular, separation of church and state, and they advocate for abortion rights also. It was founded by Cecily Richards, Ann Richards' daughter, the former governor of Texas. Anyone else?
What was the name of that place again?
The Texas Freedom Network.
Thank you.
Okay. In the back, in the black shirt, with the glasses.
Oh, is that you? Okay.
Yes.
Pregnant people, women, it is not just a women's issue, the availability of abortion. It is a family issue. You can check me on my statistic. But 2/3 of pregnant people already have children. They can't afford more. You talked about that. But we're often forgetting the other side of the equation, the man, the impregnator, who is now, I'll say, doomed to have a parental relationship with a child and another person that they may not like at all for 18 years and pay support. And that can be devastating to a young person, obviously on both sides of the equation, but I think we so often forget the effect on the person who is now co-parenting and supporting a child that they didn't want. Now, granted, these children do grow up to be loved, but that doesn't mean that we need to carry them at the onset. And so it is a male issue as well as a woman's issue. And men have no say whatsoever in whether that pregnancy is going to be carried or not.
And men can be tricked into parenthood.
Yeah, men can be raped, absolutely, by fraud.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, and she was saying that it's also a men's issue, that men perhaps don't want to co-parent with someone that they had sex with. And that's okay, because this is 2024. We have medical ways that are better than punishing two people who don't want to parent together, right? Also, she was saying that I often get this argument even from secular people that a man has no say over whether somebody has an abortion or not, and that as if that's a bad thing. But what she's saying, probably the vast majority of people whose partner wants an abortion don't want to force somebody to give birth. Or they didn't want to be a parent because they asked the other person to get an abortion. If they're not ready to be a parent, and if they are, why would they force somebody who's not ready to be a parent? How is that? Yes.
So a lot of times, these are families too. These are families doing family planning. They can't afford another kid. It's the economy, stupid, right? These are families that are going to go into welfare. The moms that have to drop out of the workforce to raise another kid.
Yes.
The economy, stupid. If you don't want to make it an abortion issue, make it an economy issue, right?
Yeah, she was saying if you don't want to make it an abortion issue, make it an economy issue, because a lot of people, maybe they're even married. They can't afford another child. And on that, I remind you of what Mike Johnson had to say about that. Before the Roe versus Wade, we had, to him, a better time getting able-bodied workers. Think of that for a minute. Yes, exactly. Exactly, that's the subtext. That you should force Americans to give birth for the economy, but we don't want brown workers. Exactly. Yes. Yes.
I think of it as science. If I, as the host body, if I have a growth on my knee that's multiplying and dividing, and it's up to me whether I want that growth on my knee or not as the host body. I have a right, I can choose to lance that off and not have it feed off of my body. So to me, that's the bottom line, is that it's not the government's responsibility to tell me what to do with anything on my body.
And she was saying it's not the government's responsibility, it's not their right to tell you what to do with your own body. A tumor, like she's saying, on your knee is living, it's alive.
But they made it their responsibility, which is what really stinks.
It does, because we have to live that way. Yes.
It's a power and control issue, because when a woman is pregnant, when a woman has young children, they're out of the workforce, they're poverty, or they're dependent on somebody else. They clearly do not care about life, because these same people are against gun control.
Right? And welfare and education and
it has nothing to do with life. It has everything to do with power and control and keeping women down.
She's saying it's about power control and keeping women down, and the same people who say they're pro-life are pro-gun control. And also think about women like Kate Cox who were forced to go out of state to defend her own life because the state wanted to force her to give birth to a non-viable pregnancy. And think about this, as non-Christians here, we don't think this way, but I used to be a Christian, and maybe somewhere, some of them are thinking, well, the doctors say that this pregnancy is non-viable, but God can work a miracle in her life. You know, risk your life. You are going to perhaps die, but maybe some miracle will happen, which won't happen, right? I believe the condition was trisomy. And so, no, it's not happening. And then Ken Paxton said that the judge that approved her abortion wasn't a doctor. Well, hello, Ken Paxton. You're not a doctor either. And you didn't listen to her doctor either. In the back?
Yes, it's obvious there's a lot of passion in the room. And I just want to make a plea for some practical action. I think out to vote.
Yes.
So, Florida people, if you have not re-registered to vote since 2022, you have to do that because they changed the law to make it harder for people to vote. And millions of people in Florida have been taken off the ballot of all the voter rolls. So if you haven't re-registered to vote since 2022, do it now. And then vote yes on Amendment 4.
Amendment 4?
Amendment 4 on the Florida ballot of November will prohibit the state government from doing anything about abortion.
He's correct. He said that rather than, channel that passion to action, and he helped an amendment in Florida, amendment number 4. So re-register to vote, because sometimes they will unregister you if you move or something like that. They do that in Texas too. Make sure you're still registered and vote for amendment 4. Yes.
Yeah, but there's an and. Contact your local Democratic office and get involved to get out the vote.
Yeah. I want to add something. In the state of Florida, they recently, in the past couple of years, passed a law so that now you have to re-up every year to maintain your ability to vote. Your absentee ballot, all of that has to be re-upped annually. So you need to be aware of what is required to vote so that you just don't assume everything's going to be great. And you need to encourage the nuns to vote. We're talking about numbers and arguing with people of faith, but in reality, the numbers are with us. We just need to get out and vote and help other people.
The non-religious, as David said, have just outnumbered every other religious belief system, which our belief is there's not a theistic thing going on. But still, we have the numbers. Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna say something. I agree that we all need to vote, but almost every state is heavily gerrymandered. So yes, we have to get out and vote. But I wonder what it's going to take for the conservative women to realize what danger they are in. But I wonder sometimes their magical thinking things.
Yes.
God will save me. It's not going to happen to me. Or I'm the good one, so they're going to make an exception for me. That's not the case. When I was in nursing school, they taught me that the most dangerous time in a pregnant person's life and a baby's life is birth. A lot of pregnant people, a lot of babies die before modern medicine.
Particularly in the United States.
Yes. So what's it going to take for them to open their eyes and see that they are in danger?
What's it going to take, she says, for religious conservative women to realize they're in danger? And that's the story I told you. I had an ultrasound tech, with my pants down, looking at my uterus, because sometimes as a teacher, I've had lots of Christian coworkers who think that's their ministry. And so she's got the ultrasound one. Now she, just talking to the one, I guess, this is your ministry. So she was telling all the same trite arguments about women shouldn't be having multiple abortions, and I tried to tell her, if you think she's irresponsible because she's having multiple abortions, why do you want her to give birth to a child? And so I'm arguing here with my pants down with her, and she just what will it take? She flat out denied that when I told her you're an ultrasound tech, you come across, she told me a story about how they convinced somebody to give birth to twins, and that was a victory, right? And I'll say, you're an ultrasound tech. Have you never seen a miscarriage that doesn't detach, and that's going to go septic if that person doesn't get an abortion? They have. She had. And then she said, well, they make exceptions in Texas for the life of the mother. No, they won't. Not when it comes down to it, they're going to prosecute you. They promise to prosecute anybody that helps you. Yes.
Okay, Pennsylvania, right? We've been talking here about the need to do something, but the reality is that a lot of those waiting laws and whatever
They are now ubiquitous. In Pennsylvania, we just got a more liberal Supreme Court, and they issued a ruling on the state constitution that it does protect, discrimination on gender, and that abortion is gender discrimination for women, outlawing it. So this very recent ruling, it's out there, by the way, if you wanna read some good writing, but now they have to unwind the 24-hour laws, the waiting laws. If we're gonna do this state by state, it's gonna be, well, okay, Jess, I'll go with forever. It's going to be excruciating. And what a mess we've gotten ourselves into over the past year.
Yes, she was saying that Pennsylvania, their Supreme Court recently upheld that women have abortion rights because it's discrimination, gender-based discrimination to not have abortion rights, but they still have 24-hour waiting periods. And that's great, and I hope, as I live in Texas, I don't need abortion for myself. I've had 3 kids, my tube's tied, I'm done. But I'm fighting for my daughter and everybody else. I can have compassion for other people who aren't my friends and family. Doesn't the Bible say that? That even a pagan can be a good person, So just, it's what my worry is, and it's not me, I don't think, being super anxious about it. If all three branches of government go to religious conservatives, it will be national. You have a liberal Supreme Court in Pennsylvania. The Supreme Court can, and the state constitution as well.
That it supports women's right to abortion, because otherwise it's sex discrimination, which our constitution does not allow.
And watch, the religious conservatives are always states' rights. Watch how states' rights are going to be if they get all 3 of the national branches. Yes.
I think it's been said before, but people will only change their opinions with emotions. Will only change their opinions by emotions. Logic
Emotion. Yes.
We can know the science, we can know the logic. But we need those funny memes, we need the TikToks, we need the Instagrams, we need the things that can be emotional.
Yes.
That is the only way you're going to change person's.
I've seen this. I've seen this in atheist arguments. We should only make logical, scientific arguments, and yes, we should. But as she's saying, we should also appeal to emotions. I mean, that's what conservatives have been doing this entire time in a yucky way. It's bad rhetoric. It's creepy, fear-based, fear-mongering rhetoric. But if it's an actual rational thing that people should be afraid of, we should raise awareness of it. That affects their lives, but we should definitely do that. David said that was the last question.
Thank you.